Hello, everyone's Forest Focus. It's December. Nottingham Forest played 16 games and are fourth in the Premier League with 28 points, putting them above Manchester City, the team who've won the title for the last 4 seasons, no less. Insane stuff, but can it continue? We'll discuss that and break down Saturday's 2-1 win against Aston Villa in the company of, first of all, Michael Temple. This afternoon, how are you doing?
Feeling good, thanks, Matthew.
Good. David Prutton, good to have you back with us. How are you?
I'm very well. Mildly better than you, my friend, but well done for soldiering on.
Yeah. I'm not getting any. I think I might be getting worse for people who've been tracking my condition, but I've got to be better by Friday. So I've got to drive to relatives. My missus will not be happy if we can't travel.
You do know you're not looking at your actual camera on your laptop at the moment, don't you? You're looking away.
I don't know. I was just genuinely, I was relieved when I woke up on Sunday and could see out of one eye. I thought I was going to be blind. So times like this, you realize, actually, quite important to be able to see. So it's not all bad. I can see out of one eye. Right, good to have you both with us. Like I say, we'll talk Villa. We'll talk about the general big picture and get into all that and all the main instance of a very enjoyable game. I mean, kick us off, Temps, with general thoughts on what we witnessed on Saturday, especially for Pete yourself, who was in the stadium.
I spent 70 minutes just thinking I was watching a really good Villa side who were frustrating us, who were keeping the ball, and frankly, for much of the game, looked better than us. But the hallmark of the Forest side this year is finding a way. I think there's games where we've got it spot on and run it from start to finish. This wasn't one of those. This is one where we had to dig deep and find a way to get ourselves back into the game later on. And that's exactly what happened. So we asked before if we think this team is lucky or good. And I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? We've got players who come on from the bench and make an impact. We've got a real structure, and we set out to disrupt Villa for the first hour or so. Didn't quite have it our own way, but the way we came roaring through to pip them at the post was just fantastic and symptomatic of why we're fourth in the Premier League.
Have I put the wrong time for this starting? Apparently I have. I mean, that's pretty standard stuff. So sorry if I have. But we're live now. There's 300 people with us in 2 minutes, which is great. So hit like if you would. Perhaps people have noted that you are once again a star of the screen. Are you home alone today? Is that Kevin McAllister? You are the star of the Sky promo again. Never answered my question about how many takes did it take for the Sky Christmas advert?
The thing in its entirety took a long time. Probably about 10 hours, which was punctuated with lots of banter, of course. It's a bit of fun. I mean, when we ran it on Saturday, and it was I've obviously got to reference it's about Christmas, and we've got lots of games coming up which didn't really reference that at all. But for a way to spend a day in a big posh house in Wimbledon, I can think of worse ones. So no, it's good fun. And you know me, Matt. Never been a serious journo or a serious footballer, so more than happy to place myself front and centre for people to point and laugh at.
I thought that was Prutton Towers in Harrogate. I didn't realise you had a stunt house.
Yeah. Hey, well, from what I heard, the cost of hiring out, I'd have gladly brought them up here, but it would have been of no way befitting of the McAllister household.
Very good. What about this win then, Prutz? I think we've been looking for that statement home win. Yeah. In some ways, you know, Villa aren't quite Liverpool or I'm going to say City, maybe not Liverpool or Arsenal. But is it the manner of the win that makes that a statement win? There was a lot of adversity in the game that Forest came through, wasn't there?
There was, but they've got the type of backbone, spine, fortitude, whatever you want to call it, to deal with that. We're talking about a Villa side that, truth be told, isn't at the levels that it was last season, because obviously what last season created for them was a foray into Europe. But the very boring adage of you can only beat what's put in front of you, they are capable of competing with the very best teams in the division, as it seems Forest are increasingly. So you're going to have games where it's not going to go all your own way. We're going to come on to decisions that were either made or not made. A truly wonderful save, which from Emi Martinez. I mean, that's then kind of put into context by the fact that the big fella's head has bundled in and he could have done a load better with that one. But absolutely going with Temps is taking it, watching it from that vantage point of a marker potentially of what Villa have got to where Forest potentially could aim for. And I'm not being overboard with that, because incremental progression. I mean, I sat there and watched Villa beat Derby in the playoff final not too long ago, and look where Derby went, and look where Villa went, and look where they are now. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility, given what the owners like. Forest is very, very ambitious. So there is an element of that's coming to it. But adversity, got through it. Personnel changes, which show a great depth of the squad. And also the ability to rely on big players at big times. And they absolutely did that. And you can't discount. And it's tough, obviously. It's one of those atmospheres that you want to see firsthand. But seeing it and you can feel it come through your telly, that was a huge part of it. The change in the dynamic of the game, the change in the momentum of the game was one that you could see and feel and hear. And by the end of it, you saw Villa shell-shocked because of a very strong Forest finish. And if that's maybe a benchmark and a footprint and a way to go about beating a team such as that, you'd rather have potentially, there's a couple of comments where it said about it was like watching a chess match, only not interesting, which I thought was quite funny. But you'd rather have that end to the game, because I presume you go bouncing out of the City ground going, what an amazing game. And we can all break it down and say they could have done better. That decision might have been that. Decisions and fine margins in games. But so what? So what? Forest won the game. They found themselves in that position in the Premier League. And you don't write off what you've seen for 70 minutes, but you sure as hell kind of celebrate how the team ended the game. Absolutely.
I quite like the first half, actually. It was quite interesting in its way. Two good managers. I mean, actually, we'll get on to the managers in a bit. Prutz mentions incremental steps. I mean, these steps aren't incremental really now, I guess, temps. But I'll put up the European Dream Tracker. Now with added Champions League, I asked Dan to update it with a yellow line for Champions League progress, which is mental, but we are in the Champions League places in December. So you've got to get, on average, 1.84 points per game. And Dan says that works out to 4 more wins to get in the Champions League compared to the Europa League. So on average, apparently that's 21 wins. That feels like a very big ask. With City, it feels like City are at rock bottom and we're perhaps at our peak. But we are there, Thames. Do you believe we might be able to continue it, and we'll make a case as for why we might be able to?
No, I don't believe we're going to finish in the Champions League spot. So I was just looking at the maths there. So we're 28 points from 16. I think we've got it in us to get 32 points from 22, which would take us to 60 points. I think that's the new baseline. And we can overachieve because it's not like we've had an easy run of fixtures. We've gone to Man U away. We've gone to Man City away. We've been to Arsenal. We're not just storing up these tough trips back end of the season. So I don't think there's any reason why we can't hit that 1.57 points per game, whatever that equates to in terms of league points. But we're better than I thought a month ago. I think that the Man U game is the one for me that's really showed me we can go toe to toe with, you know, bigger sides away and get it done. There was nothing lucky about that. It was by design. It was because our players were better than theirs on the day. Brooks talks about incremental steps. I think that's happening in midfield and up front, the way we structure our possession. But it's just been one seismic step in the way we defend with the signing of Milenkovic. He's an absolute man mountain. He's added so much. And that turnaround in defending set pieces, and also now what we're doing from attacking set pieces, I think is down to him in a large part. He's a dominant defender, defends the near post so well. And he's the reason why our defensive resolve has taken such a leap. You add to that the number of players that can pop up with a goal, and you can see why this table looks as healthy as it does at the moment. I think we're punching above our weight. I think we're a far better team than we all thought we were at the start of the season. And that 50-point prediction that we had 6-7 weeks ago now needs to be 60 plus. Champions League, a little bit of a bridge too far for me, but I think we're in the hunt for that 6th, 7th, 8th, which feels eminently possible.
Good to have 450 people with us already. I see Anna, who's a big supporter of the show. Good to have you watching live, Anna, saying you got absolutely smashed on Saturday night. So, well, I'm sure everyone else did and enjoyed it. Right. I mean, I suppose January's a big factor for us, isn't it? Like what we do, what other teams do. Like City go out and buy a central midfielder, and it might fix a lot of their woes. So there's a lot of moving pieces to it. But you know, what's your take on it in general?
Yeah, I think was the reports as well, given what Rodri's rehabilitation's like with his knee. So, I mean, whether it was done as a bit of positive PR and what is a dismal patch of the season for them with regards to him possibly being back earlier than anticipated. I mean, that still puts him in around probably Easter at the earliest, doesn't it? Which, if that means that they're going to go flying through the remaining fixtures, that's a different thing entirely. But I think, given having been on here and listened when I'm not, it's that change in perception of what should be achievable has been refreshing, because it's not beyond the realms of possibility. You're not trying to sound an overtly cautious tone, maybe even a bit pessimistic. So early editions of this season would have been me calling for Forest to find themselves 17th or above. I mean, they've well and truly smashed that to pieces, which is wonderful to see. And given where they do find themselves now, in fourth position, where the top two quite clearly are going bang at it, even though Chelsea don't want to talk about them being in the title hunt, which I think is absolutely ludicrous as well, given how much money they've spent. Arsenal with Forest just behind them. And what I've seen of the other teams, what you kind of assume the other teams are capable of. City, somewhere, something will fight. You've got to feel that. Villa, I'm intrigued, given what their exertions in Europe, the effect it seems to be having on them in the league. Bournemouth and Fulham, maybe there are a couple of outliers, but you look at Brighton as well yesterday, susceptible to defeats against, yes, it's a rival, but a team that they, in theory, should be beating. Spurs can be a toss of a coin. Brentford's a really intriguing one, given the perhaps contrast between their home and away form. And then you're down into Newcastle, Man U and West Ham. So given what that list of teams have shown so far, and given what Forest have shown so far, we're almost, given their position, and if there's a maintenance of this position over Christmas and into the new year, you're very much into the why not category of finishing there, which, I mean, you may be, if you're looking at other podcasts of teams that have been a bit more established in the Prem, thinking that they should be divine right for a top four finish, listening to a Forest podcast going, yeah, well, at some stage the season's going to catch up with you. It doesn't look like it is at the moment. The January, going back to part of the original question, it can be a tricky one if you get the wrong personality in, or personalities that can upset the chemistry, because quite clearly recruitment so far this year, this season, has been pretty much spot on, and players that potentially have come to the fore and reasserted themselves have really added to that. So it's going to be, I'm intrigued to see the way that they handle it, because what's from a financial point of view, Matt, with regards to being able to spend money, is it a bit clearer? Is it a bit less kind of murky when it comes to, yes, there's literally this block of money and after that there's nothing, or do players need to go out?
Well, I think there's an assumption, Temps might weigh in on this. I think there's an assumption there's around 30 million, because we tried to buy a striker for 30 million and we were looking at goalkeepers at the end of the summer. So there's obviously money to spend there, isn't there, Temps? I would say.
Yeah, there's definitely money to spend. And I think an ambition and intent and a history, frankly, that we haven't had a quiet transfer window since Evangelos Marinakis walked the doors at the City ground. And I think he'll be looking to move a couple on as well. I still believe there's a scenario in which Taiwo, for example, leaves, so we can bolster that particular department. So yeah, I think the league position and where we find ourselves will only strengthen his resolve to move. And it obviously opens up a category of player that you wouldn't be able to attract if you're scrapping around at the wrong end. So excited for January and expect to have at least a couple through the door.
The part of that as well, which obviously with how the owner runs stuff, and he's very much his own man. I mean, that's an understatement, isn't it? When we've perhaps spoken about Forest in the past, particularly about when they were coming up, about what you get to January in a good position and you think, well, we're in the top six, knocking on the door of the top two, might be in the top two. Do you go again to make sure that this form's maintained? It's very much like that, but on steroids, isn't it? Because this next port of call, if it does end up in the Champions League, obviously there's money that comes from where you finish in the division. But as you quite rightly say, Temps, you suddenly open the doors of the Champions League. That's a different... I mean, it's huge getting into the Premier League. It's massive getting into the Premier League. To be able to put that together with Champions League football, that really does open Forest up to a world of the very top table, because it opens up more, obviously, a bigger revenue stream. Therefore, you can pay bigger wages. A player comes and looks at the training ground and goes, "Yep, I'll have a bit of that." Looks at the city, "Yep, I'll have a bit of that." Senses the environment, "Yep, I'll have a bit of that." The atmosphere, the crowd on a match day, the history and the heritage of the football club. Suddenly, you're back to a position where, when your fans talk about returning to where they believe they should be, this could potentially, without trying to over-egg it or jinx it or anything like that, Forest could be on the cusp of that, They could really be on the cusp of it because, as I said, seasons come away from putting seasons after each other, view them in their own immediacy, in their own little slot. You look at the teams that Forest are competing against, absolutely, why not getting into fourth spot? And like I said, suddenly that sliding doors moment of where you were a team that in the Premier League, where it was all about consolidation, you have Muppets like me saying, "Yeah, it's just about being safe." Suddenly you've taken a quantum leap and you are knocking on the door of huge, massive, established Premier League football clubs, which, by virtue of history and heritage, you would class Forest as ones that should be rubbing shoulder with that.
Yeah, we were all saying that, to be fair. I should say as well, we could conceivably finish fifth and still get in the Champions League. A few people have pointed that out. Do you think the top three set? So I watched Chelsea last night. I thought they were very good again. I'm surprised how good they are, to be honest. Do you think it's that 1, 2, 3 is in place now, or can City get back in amongst them?
I think, given that it's not completely cut and dried, and at some stage you do feel City turning the corner, turning the year, and doing what City traditionally have done. Even though, there are really kind of staggeringly surprising signs coming out of that football club with regards to how the manager is coping with it or dealing with it, and everyone looking at him for the answers and the play. The game yesterday was just astounding, absolutely astounding. When you look at it, there's not much in it, and then it just a meltdown. The reactions were phenomenal, really, from an entertainment point of view. That reverse angle of the tackle on Ahmed Diallo in the box, where you just see John Stones go, "No," and it's one of those where you can be in a position on a pitch where there's a debate about a penalty. When the reaction of your teammates is "Jesus," like oh, right, it's definitely a pen then. Yes, definitely a pen. And then even the second goal. Sorry, it's not. I know it's not a Man City podcast. Even the second goal, and you've got someone trying to backheel it off the line when it's trickling towards goal. Just like Guardiola's there going, this has gone mental. What are you all doing? So at some stage, that's got to right itself. You can't be that good and then just drop off, and that's you've done. That's got to right itself. But Liverpool, under Slot, have seamlessly carried on. Tough game for them against Fulham. I thought Robinson quite rightly sent off because it was a dogzo opportunity, a dogzo situation in that part of the field. Chelsea, as much as Enzo wants to dial it down, and we saw a lot of him last season at Leicester, the cynic in you goes, "Yeah, well, you spent £1 billion on players. Sorry, you should be, regardless of where the project is, you absolutely should be chasing down the best teams." Arsenal, with that recurrence of the expectation that comes on them and trying to chase down the likes of City and Liverpool, I think they maybe toil under that a little bit more. But I do possibly believe that top two's set, possibly, yeah, even though we've got Arsenal not too far off that hunt. But the rest, I think, right now, seemingly up for grabs, which I think is, for Forest, it's perfection, really, isn't it? Where you just kind of keep nestling yourself in with the runners. The question then comes further down the line with expectations, doesn't it? And then suddenly, without being too ultra cynical, suddenly someone going, "Oh, we quite like the look of Nuno." And then suddenly you don't know where that goes, but he's seemingly pretty happy at the moment, isn't he? As rightly he should be.
Yeah, massively. Well, we'll talk about Nuno more if we have time. There's a lot I want to get through. Just before we start talking about the match and a few of the key players in it, just a quick word for the Trent navigation. Only a few days ago till the brilliant, we'll say, 80s and 90s mixtape, the ultimate daytime Christmas party, drinks offers, Steve McGill, the Fun Boy 2, not Pruts and Temps, Snowboard Simulator, 80s and 90s bangers, club anthems and club classics, 1 p.m. till 7 p.m. Tickets are £5, and I'll put the link in the description for this episode from gigantic.com. So do look forward to that one. Right, let's talk about some of the key players from this game then, Temps. I think we should start with Elanga because he got the winner. I thought he was very unlucky with the VAR and the offside thing, but I'm just very pleased for him because we've discussed him a lot. It feels like we've been defending him quite a lot. So I'm pleased that he's actually, rewarded himself and the football club with, a big and much needed performance there. First goal since February.
The thing that stands out for me is he spoke to the Sky cameras after and he said, I know I can do better. I need to do better. I want to keep improving. He wasn't feeling sorry for himself. He wasn't in any way bagging the manager or the bad luck that he's had. He almost conceded that he felt he probably did need to be dropped to do some graft at the training ground and get himself back in. And I think that kind of self-awareness is, excuse me 1 second as I just divert my landline for a minute. It was very, very, very mature.
The landline ringing about 10 years.
I haven't even got a landline anymore.
Shall I start my answer again? Shall we pretend
it was the 90s calling, asking for its mixtape back.
Steve McGill.
The fun boy too.
I think Elanga comes back into the side now. I think he's proven what he does have, which is that ability to time his run at the right time, but also the sheer pace to get there. And the manner in which he cut across defenders to get on the end of Elliot Anderson's pullback demonstrated that there's a hunger and a desire, which was the hallmark of his purple patch last season. So I think Jota Silva was deserving of that period in the team, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see Ante Elanga get his minutes. That was a decisive moment in the game. He said all the right things afterwards, and I think there's a place there for him to grab starting next week.
Good finish for the winner, Prutz, wasn't it? We'll talk through that goal. We'll do it slightly in reverse order. I suppose we should start with, was it a foul, do you think, on Matty Cash or not?
No, I mean, there's softness in something like that, I think, with regards to how it's broken down. I just think the intensity at that particular time of the game, you felt it, that hunting impacts it. And you do get the sense of that when you do have your tails up after getting yourselves back into the game and then reacting to what the energy shift in the stadium is. And they did exactly that. I mean, there were comments from Unai Emery after the game about obviously not just that, but the potential penalty early on, where on a different day, I don't know, it's hard to sometimes quantify what you see with your own eyes in the Premier League, because there's at times when I'm pulling my hair out watching games thinking, well, you've got to have the consistency in the decision making, and something that is deemed relatively soft is then waved away by another ref or then blown up. But it's the reaction to that. I know what you say about the finish as well, because it's a nice ball back, but it's fairly wrapped, isn't it? It's demanding to be hit. The answer comes with the ball into you, with regards to what you do with it. So I think from that point of view, I can't see too many like objective, balanced debate with regards to potential fouls there. But again, with Elanga and what Temps was saying and his reaction, and given potentially what this squad is capable of, as we've talked at length so far about potential league finishes, at times there has got to be an assumption and an acceptance of a player's role within the team. And sometimes that role is not necessarily in the team. I think the spine of the Forest side, with the goalie, with Milenkovic, Maria, with Yates, and with Chris Wood, I think, I'm not saying they've got to play every game or every minute of every game, but that's a good spine, or it's grown into a good spine to hang the rest of these players off. And if these players are of the ability of Elanga to come into the side, and obviously Morgan Gibbs-White to do what we know Morgan can do, then it allows Nuno to rotate the team, but keep them hungry. And again, going back to Temps's point, is not there spitting his dummy out or kicking up a fuss that he's not been in the side. If you've got a player actively saying, I can do better, it's an absolute sweet spot for a manager to be in, because what he's done by moving in and out of the team has got the desired reaction. He comes on for that cameo, completely changes the course of the game, and then chucks his hat back into the ring for the next starting 11.
I might be making a mess of your running here, Matt. I'm sorry about that. But just on the Elanga goal in the run-up, there's two instances of the game of controlled aggression and uncontrolled aggression from Elliot Anderson. The way he smashed Kashi in that position, in that third, was a free hit and led to a goal. Fantastic. But the risk he took in dragging the arm in the box was way over the top and could have been the decisive moment in that game. And Prutz knows a thing or two about controlled aggression. I know. So what was your view on that, Prutz?
The penalty shout,
the first half one. So people, I know Forest fans are going to say, "Well, Rodgers fouled Anderson first and pulled his shirt," but I feel like if you take it in isolation of him pulling Rodgers' arm in the box, that's a decision that is there to be made. Is that a penalty or not?
Yeah. In Premier League terms, in modern day football terms, the pull of the opposition player is too long. Again, it's one of those ones where you look at, and we're now in this VAR world where you think, well, that's obviously going to get looked at and given. But it wasn't. And I think on balance of what that potential decision could be, I think it's always good to flip it the other way. And I think if it had gone, if it had been a Forest forward going into the box and a pullback, I think we'd be sat on here saying it's a disgrace that it wasn't given. I think if you can be objective about it, that's what I'd see with that. And again, I hate it to a degree because it's a soft contact between two players. That we've got to start using terminology like contact with consequence, prolonged holding, all this type of stuff, which it's childish to compare it to 25 years ago because it's not that. It's a pull in the box, which you see more often than not given as a pen, especially with the intervention of VAR.
Yeah, because I do think it was a foul by Rodgers to start with, but VAR's not looking at. But VAR's not looking at that. It's looking at the incident in the box. So. Yeah, I did think it was probably, as Prut says, if it's at the other end, I would want one. Just before we carry on talking about Elliot Anderson, a couple of good points from the chat, I think. Anderson wanted it more than Cash, as Fargo says. And Jackie says, the ref, who I thought had a good game. It's interesting, watching it on Sky to watching it in the ground. I always think refs are worse when I'm watching them live in the ground, but I thought he was decent yesterday. And also Paul says, Villa, if you're streetwise, Villa players should really appeal for that and go mad about it, and then maybe the ref blows because that might have tipped the scale slightly. So all fair points certainly. Sticking with Elliot Anderson, Temps, I kind of wonder if he took it very personally, being left out or hooked quite early in games, and now he's just playing so well. It's just like saying, actually, you've got to play me in every game ahead of Morgan Gibbs-White, ahead of any other midfielder. I've got to be in this team. Is that fair?
I think we accommodated that because it's this. You could say the same of Nico Dominguez. So first half, we just played this asymmetric shape with no right winger, an absolute focal point down the left-hand side. And Villa didn't adapt to that. And it just gave us that overlap and that ability to try and play down that particular channel. So 2 tactical shifts required to get both Nico Dominguez and Elliot Anderson into the side. But it's a combination that's paying off because it makes us so resilient without the ball. And we were deep and compact for a long period in the first half. And then we alleviate the need to have 2 flyers by just focusing our entire attack down the left-hand side. I think Elliot Anderson is in the team to stay. Just looks so composed on the ball. And for a lad of relatively young years, he does have that combative, aggressive streak, as we've just discussed at length, which needs to be channeled a bit. But it's his ability on the ball that I'm most excited about. To get hold of the ball in the manner that he did with Kashi, and then not have the need to give it to someone that can play, which is often the role of someone who's combative and a ball winner, if you like, rather than any kind of creative player. He can do both bits. And then to get his head up, get to the byline, run the fullback, get his head up and find the run of Alango just demonstrates the breadth of his skill set. And that's why he's in the side. And that's why I'm excited about what he can become. I just think the type of player he is hard to define because he can perform a number of different roles, all from centre mid.
And the thing is as well with Elliot, it's a twofer really, isn't it? Because it was a player that had to leave a football club for financial reasons, given the profit that you make on a player such as that. And he's come to a Forest side very much looking at potentially what Newcastle have done as a template of asserting themselves in the top division, but having money that they're not allowed to spend. So, I mean, Eddie Howe's probably sat there going, you've killed us there. But obviously that's beyond his control. It's PSR rules, which we're not going to have another debate on that because God knows what they are. But yeah, it's one of those real against a potential rival for where Forest want to end. It's like, well, we got him for this, and now he's playing really well, and he's going to develop into a fantastic player. But got so many strings to his bow, It's a joy to watch.
I do want to talk next about Morgan, but while I remember, because Temps is throwing my running order, I killed it. I was going to mention that I thought Dominguez had a really solid game, softening up Dino a little bit to bring Alango on. Thought he did well, and obviously there was that save, which we'll come on to shortly. But just sticking with the midfielders, the influential ones, Temps. Morgan's game was interesting again. Interesting in the fact that I don't think he was playing very well again until we went behind, and then he really came to life, which in one way is great because you can see his quality. And the other way, is it a little frustrating that he's, I don't know, too many flicks and tricks at the moment, or not? It feels harsh to dig out a player when we've won and he's had a big fat influence in it, but I feel like there's still more to come from him.
I think copy and paste what we said a couple of weeks ago. We set a high standard for Morgan Gibbs-White because we know what he can do. He's getting the goals and assists as he did at the weekend, as he did against Man United, and that's important. But as the player that's tasked with trying things, putting the ball at risk, taking players on, having the ball in traffic, of course, he's going to make mistakes. That's been the case in both of these games. We've been mildly critical, but he's still found a way to impact the game. I thought it was a very good cross, wasn't it? It was tough. Kept the keeper in no man's land. He had a little scan and a glance up and saw Milenkovic steaming at the back post. So just we're asking for that consistency because we're all very excited about what Morgan Gibbs-White is. He's established himself in the England conversation. He's made his debut for the national team, and he's a player that we're building a team around. He's the first name on the team sheet. He's given the license to cheat a bit defensively and to be creative. And when everything clicks, he runs a game. I'll always reference that Fulham win at home last season. I think he was just head and shoulders the best player on the pitch, and everything we did went through him. And that there are going to be games from that type of player where things don't quite come off. So it wasn't his best game, but he was involved again. And there's no doubt we are going to build a team around him for the next season and a half at least.
That was a really good goal, really well worked. I mean, Nico deserves credit. Again, I thought he had a really good game, but he could have played it out wide for an easier pass and an easier cross in, but he played it to Morgan. And like you say, the quality of the cross, you know, he has a look, I think, doesn't he? It is a really good goal. I mean, I guess we can look at Martinez in a different way, maybe a bit Prutz there for that goal from Milenkovic.
It was almost in his arms, wasn't it?
He caught it, hasn't he?
Yeah. Which and it. I mean, whether it's the momentum of the goalkeeper going back, because it's a perfect position for where you need to put that cross. You've got to stand up with the back post, especially when you've got somebody of the size of Milenkovic to be able to come up against him. He seemed to have half the Villa squad all about this high, just trying to stop him doing it. But it was, if you're going to objectively split hairs about what you've seen from a goalkeeper, he's got to save that. And he's a phenomenal goalkeeper, and the save in the first half is absolutely ridiculous. First half, second half, I got them, but the one that he stops on the line, the more you look at it, it's just innovative. It's great improvisation. Sometimes you look at that and you think, does he know what he's doing? But I think the movement of his body and getting his bearings that quickly is phenomenal to see. Unbelievable, so.
Yeah, and that's where I guess the adversity comes from, Temps, isn't it? Because that was an unbelievable save. Then 2 minutes later, which has become a bit of a pattern for us, something goes against us, and then we can see 2 minutes later, it happened against City, it happened against United, and now it's happened against Villa. We concede. I feel like it's a bit harsh to question Sells there. I think you give credit to Duran, who's a brilliant player. But are you going to be critical of Matt Sells, that header? I thought it was a really good header, but what did you think?
6 months ago, we were debating getting Aaron Ramsdale in to displace Matt Sells, and now I have no question whatsoever about who I want our keeper to be for the rest of this season into next. I think Matt Sells has just been this figure of solidity. If there are any doubts about his distribution, it hasn't come to pass. His hands have been really safe. That was a great header from a great player, and I think John Duran can be anything he wants to be over the next 10 years. It was a tough one, unconventional, wasn't it? A kind of diagonal cross, and he almost had his back to goal and had to generate that loop, albeit with the pace already on the ball. But good goal. I'm crediting John Duran rather than bagging Matt Sells in any way for that one.
Yeah, I guess Prutz, when you see a sort of a lofted ball, it was taken early, which is, it made it harder for Sells, but he had to generate the power himself, which is probably why you may look at the keeper. But I don't know. I just think Duran's great, and I'd rather have faced Ollie Watkins than Duran, to be honest, which sounds strange, but given how good Watkins has been.
Yeah, and Duran, he's got that aura about him now that when he's on the pitch, there's something going to happen from a goal scoring point of view. So that's I don't know, that's a debate for a Villa podcast, isn't it? What kind of kick up the arse that gives Ollie Watkins to get back to the form that we've seen him in the Premier League. But I think you're right. I don't know whether it's something deeply embedded in us all of a certain age where flighted headers seemingly should be saved. Don't they? We kind of think, well, it should be able to save it, but well placed and away from a goalkeeper, obviously it's just tough as a shot, isn't it, sometimes? So I don't think there's someone's put on there about Sells being solid. He is, and that's what in previous incarnations of what that Forest defence looked like was crying out for, wasn't it? Solid, unspectacular, gets on with his job, not beaten in a way that you're questioning the position of the goalkeeper, the ability of the goalkeeper, or the handling of the goalkeeper, but beaten with good goals. That's what literally Sells is. Simple as that. So there's I'm with Temps on that. As much as you want us to sandbag Matt Sells, there's nothing in that and create a narrative. There's nothing in that where I think you can inherently point the finger at the goalie.
No, I agree. The final big incident in the game was the disallowed VAR goal. I mean, I must admit, I watched the first replay and thought, yeah, that's fine. And then they find a third and fourth replay, and it looks slightly dodgy. And I don't know, there's all sorts of questions about where the lines are drawn, when the lines are drawn. Oh, I'd probably sound bitter because it went against Forest, and maybe next time it goes in our favour. But what did you think, Temps? Also, you were watching it in the ground. It must be infuriating in the ground because it was a ridiculous wait, wasn't it?
3 minutes seemed forever in the ground. I think that's my biggest criticism of VAR. If you're going to make a decision, make a quick decision. The technology is there to do it. It shouldn't be objective. I think it was onside. I think the pause point, the ball's already left Morgan Gibbs-White's foot. It was such a minute moment in time that is assessed in that one screen. I think that's important. And if he's passed the ball between frames, then that makes a material difference to the position of Elanga's elbow or whatever it was that was judged to be offside. So I think that was a good goal ruled out. But if we're assessing the performance, we can consider that Forest scored 3 goals at home against Aston Villa, and that has to point to our attacking prowess. And when we do open up, when we do change the shape and take a bit more risk, we can score goals. So I think I'm going around this in quite a elaborate way now, but I just wonder if with hindsight, we could have set up a bit more attacking against Villa and just taken them on and tried to impose ourselves as the home team rather than being a bit within our shell first half, because we just looked like such a transformed team when the shackles were off and we were able to score goals in quick succession. So could us being a bit more open earlier on have made a difference and made it more of a comfortable afternoon. But if you want my decision on the VAR, I think that's an instance that's badly handled, both because I think they made the wrong decision, but also because it took 3 minutes to get to it.
Yeah, maybe. We've been a bit open in the last couple of games, so I didn't mind Dominguez playing and giving us a bit more control. I think we've been a bit too easy to play through, so I was fine with that. Well, you watch loads of Championship football, obviously, so you don't have VAR. You probably still have howling decisions in that. So would you rather just get rid of this VAR for offsides or in general, I guess?
I mean, I think we're too far down the line now for them to scrap it, not just from the point of view of what it looks like and is interpreted as a climb down, but there'll be so much money invested in it. There'll be contracts tied to it with regards to who supplies VAR, the technology companies involved in it. That it's the decision that you see there. So we've already spoken about one with Elliot Anderson, which, if you're looking at clear and obvious error, you can count that as a clear. That's the thing that's hamstrung VAR, using it for a clear and obvious error. That statement from the outset. With the Anderson one, you can make a claim that it is a clear and obvious error. With the Elanga one, and this is one that when I've done kind of Premier League co-coms and you work with VAR, and you've got to be quite careful in the sense that if you are working for a company called Premier League Productions, if you're sat there absolutely battering the machine that's used to get the proper decisions, then you won't be working there for too long. Not saying you can't say what you think, but it was never brought in, and this is the thing that really sticks in your craw. It was never brought in to go looking for things that instantly looking at a goal and going, why is it wrong? Because goals are what make football matches. We all get into football because we love goal scoring. We love watching good goals. We love watching team goals. And when you're looking at that and you're 3 minutes into it and you're going, we're now in the realms of looking to why we would disallow that, that's what really does take the real edge and the vibrancy out of the game. The flip side of it is, you take, say, the Coventry Man United FA Cup semi-final, where hopes are dashed and dreams are shattered because Coventry's goal is deemed offside, when it is then objectively proven to be offside, it's the correct decision. And you go the other way around. If Man United scored and got away with it, oh, it's a travesty, it's ridiculous, and all that type of stuff. It then becomes a different debate. But the thing that really annoys me about it is, or not annoys, it probably saddens you to a little bit. When you are at these games, or you are watching the Premier League on TV, or you do have the pleasure or the privilege of commentating on it, the goal is disallowed or it's offside, and then the song that comes out is about what people perceive to be corruption in the Premier League, and it's not. There's not some big machine that wants to keep teams here or teams there, and sometimes you're trying to defend a decision that's made, or attempt to try and work your way to defend a decision that's made when it's just wrong. So Alanga eventually being deemed to be offside by virtue of where lines are, you have to agree with the decision because it's then categorically said it's offside. Whether it's offside by a gnat's hair is irrelevant, because if he is offside, he's offside. But the manner to get to there, the machine to get to there that Temps talks about, can be interminable. So when it is that, when it does take that long, give us the goal. And I know we're talking about it from a Forest point of view. What it used to be very broadly was the advantage to the attacker, wasn't it? And he's not head and shoulders beyond the last man. And when the terminology, it's because of the lean of his body. Well, of course his body's leaning that way because the goal's that way, for Christ's sake. His body's not leaning that way if the goal's in the opposite direction. The defender will, by virtue of what the mechanics of it are. But, I mean, you'd have to say once they get to that and prove it with lines, then you've got to say it's right. But to get there takes too long. I'd lean on it being a goal because I love watching football with goals in. And then it just becomes a depressing rant for 2 minutes about what VAR is good at times and not good at, because it takes away the spectacle completely.
There's two more uplifting topics I wanted to finish on before we go. Just before that, though, a word for our second sponsors, Global Telemetrics. Some lovely Oscar-winning acting. I think the Oscars are announced in March, so Mike Boynes, who you'll see here, could get his name in the hat. Here we go. We'll see you in 27 seconds.
No, mate, you need one of these.
There you go. If you get an anti-theft device from Global Telemetrics, they'll stop people like Mike Boynes trying to steal your car, basically. Link is in the description. Is that matching your acting there, Prutz, or not?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't pass judgment, can I, at all? It was a great get-up, though, the robber's outfit. You just needed, like, the striped top.
Yeah, and the swag bag, yeah. Right, let's talk about a couple more uplifting things before we go for the final 10 minutes. I think one of you mentioned it at the start. Maybe it was Temps. I remember on the preview show, Temps, Duncan, who was on, really good guest. I think he predicted a 2-1 win where the crowd would be a factor because it's one of the first games at home against the team, one of the big clubs, I guess you'd say. The crowd, it felt like it was back to first season in the Premier League levels. Do you think that's right? And was it a factor in the result?
Yeah, it was, because the crowd felt as aggrieved as the players that the VAR had ruined that celebratory moment. And then you find yourself down and they're camping a bit, and it says that we're flying through. So I think it was only us that were going to score at that point. And I must admit, I was happy to take a point at that stage. I thought that represented a good result based on the match that I'd seen, with Villa perhaps being the better of the two sides in the first hour. I think there have been games, understandably, over the last year or so where that year one Premier League atmosphere wasn't there. I think expectation has increased, but I think everybody now is totally bought into this squad, is totally bought into this manager, and can see the plan. I don't think there's too many surprises or debates in the pub about team selection. We can see the merits of the decisions that are being made, and we're probably having the same debates that Nuno's having with his coaching staff. So I love that togetherness, that thoughtfulness that everybody has about where we're trying to go. And of course, it's all endorsed when you win. And that's what we've done. So to a man, whilst the Villa fans were filing out, there were still 29,000 Forest fans clapping the lads off, waiting for the players to complete their lap of honour, if you like. And they can see this is a special season. So, yeah, the atmosphere felt great. And I can attest that continued until 1 a.m. in Raglan Road.
Next two home games, Prutz, are Spurs on Boxing Day, then Liverpool mid-January. And they're going to be great spectacles, aren't they? It feels like there's going to be a lot on them as well, no matter what happens in between those times.
I mean, Spurs on Boxing Day would be fantastic, won't it? That's a proper top flight game for Spurs on a Boxing Day. So it's amazing just to not think about it, because that's there's an element of naivety in that. Forest deserve to be where they are. They're pulling up so many trees. Sorry for the pun, but I mean the atmosphere. I mean, there's a couple of comments saying about it. The crowd didn't get going until the equalising goal went in. I don't know. I'm fully on board with a crowd working the atmosphere at their own free will. Football costs a lot of money to watch. If you want to sit there and be a bit miffed with what you've seen so far, I totally get that. And there's always that debate about who brings who to the party. Does the team start in a way that gets the crowd up? Does the crowd start in a way that gets the team up? And you can't say that pre-match building up to that whistle going, that Forest fans aren't actively involved in generating that atmosphere, because Muller Kintyre comes on. Christ almighty. And I don't think it's too far to throw it as a comparison to being at Anfield when You Never Walk Alone comes on, because it's, yes, there's a different history to You Never Walk Alone, and different connotations, of course, with Liverpool as a community and what they've felt they've been through over quite a long period of time. I totally get that. But that sense of togetherness that's generated just before the kickoff is pretty much unrivaled, I think, in the Premier League and maybe across European football. So that's their kind of, it's almost like that's the fans' warm up, striding into a bit of a sprint at kickoff, isn't it? Right, here we go, done a bit, come on then. And you might sit there and go, Christ, that didn't get them going, did it? Which is absolutely, it's a fan's prerogative. And then the players come to it, and suddenly the energy changes. I think the most important thing is probably how you end the game as a collective. And as Tem says, if you've got 29,000 people there still singing before they go off into the night, wherever the night takes them on a Saturday evening, I think it's phenomenal, really. And hopefully it does really build up to what is a traditional and cliched stereotype special time of the season, to have that game on Boxing Day against a team that, and a club that, I mean, to say it fancies itself as being a top four contender is an understatement. The Spurs fans are doing the nutting with regards to what they're seeing. One day they're spanking teams such as Southampton, another time they're on the ropes against a Rangers side who admittedly generate a wonderful home atmosphere of their own. So it's a massive game for Forest, and one, obviously there's a very, very tough game against Brentford in the offing as well. But given the form that they're in, given the atmosphere that can be generated, it's again absolutely across the board that Forest fans and players alike should be really looking forward to.
What do you think about the relegation battle? Quickly, Martin got sacked. O'Neill got sacked. There's four teams, it looks like, between me. I mean, Southampton look dead and buried. Who are your three, just quickly, Prutz?
Southampton are struggling. I do feel for Russell, not because
he looks a bit like him.
Well, someone said that early on, and Jamie Mackey, who we all know to a certain degree, he said he came bouncing in a couple of weeks ago, big smile on his face, and he said, "You never guess what my wife said." I went, "I don't know." He said, like, we were doing something on telly, she pointed, she went, "Bloody hell, Russell Martin's put a bit of weight on," which I was obviously instantly offended by. And I saw Russell off the back of the Liverpool game the other week, and a lot's been made about his philosophy, about how stubborn he is, how he's playing suicidal football. I watched that game where Liverpool started brightly, Southampton came back into it. His goalkeeper then passed the ball into the feet of a midfielder on the edge of his own box with three Liverpool players around him. Flynn Downs then tries a reverse pass inside his own 18-yard box. Liverpool score. And it's not speaking out of turn, but I said to, I walked in, and Colin Calder was an assistant there, so obviously knowing Cole as well. to Watson and kind of he went, don't say it. I said, what do you mean? He went, I'm not asking them to pass the ball into the feet of their own players with 3 men around them on the edge of the box. And he's totally right. It was a way of playing football that suited them in the Championship. They were the far better team in the playoff final against Leeds United, a team that finished on 90 points and still didn't get promoted. There's a huge disparity between teams that come up and teams, as Forest well know, and teams that are established in the Premier League. There's a lot to like about the way he plays football, a lot to like about the way he is very composed and confident in his own ability. I just didn't think the players were good enough to do what he wanted to do. Now, time will tell whether he learns from that in the next job that comes along. I felt for Gary O'Neill. I saw them against Everton a couple of weeks ago. What a shower of players they are. What an utter shower of players they are. Shown again at the weekend. What on earth? Off the back of the West Ham game, someone grabbing a security guard's glasses off his face, pushing him head to head, one getting carried off by Craig Dawson. What an utter shower of players that have categorically got that manager sacked. They've been rubbish. So there's a lens that they need to look down and look at themselves. They've got some good players, but across the board, very, very, very deep thought needs to go into that. And Ipswich Town, hot on the heels of Leicester, Everton. I don't know. Yeah, I think up to Palace you've got to look. West Ham, you feel at some stage will pull the fingers out. But if it was an Ipswich side that finished there, I enjoyed them thoroughly last season. They were fantastic, and I would really feel for them if they went down. But Leicester, again, another team that took the Championship by storm and have struggled this year. There's a gap. It's growing. Forest have been a wonderful example of how you jump, hang on for a couple of seasons for your dear life, bridge that gap and move on. So I think it's a wonderful position that Forest can find themselves in to look at that and be empathetic to that situation. But I'm sure as a collective, so glad that they're not anywhere near that.
Just 2 quick points on that. Gary did the co-coms for the Premier League World Feed. He was absolutely digging out Aït-Nouri all the way through the second half, saying he's a disgrace, basically. He's lazy, should be coming off. He's given up, waving the white flag. I think you can tell when players aren't putting their lot in. And yeah, he did look like he wasn't. Also, why is Southampton letting Aaron Ramsdale go on TV in a game you've got every chance of losing, and he's on TNT? It's like really odd media management.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Whether they think it's good PR that you get a player's take on what's going on, I honestly don't know. But it never looks great. We're always very wary. I mean, saying that, we had Colby Bishop on with us on Saturday lunchtime after they got absolutely pumped on Friday night by Derby, and he's a Forest fan, and he'd stirred the pot with regards to playing Derby. And the next one, it's 4-0 down, and he's sat with us. But fair play to him for doing it. But yeah, it's a strange one. Like I said, it's probably because you get professionally invested, and obviously you come across certain like Gary O'Neill's another man that we've worked with a fair bit. Kieran McKenna, bless him, kept us at arm's length, did the contractual stuff, but there's no kind of matey follow. But he's brilliant. I think he's fantastic. And what Leicester are trying to do with regards to Ruud van Nistelrooy in charge, we shall soon see. But it's just tough. And you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You go up and you change your way of playing and you might not survive. I mean, as templates go, if he follows the Burnley one, he'll be on the continent, won't he, Russell, managing one of the big clubs in either France, Spain or Germany at some stage, given what's happened this season under Southampton.
Yeah, and he's married to Lucy Pinder as well, so it's not all...
Well, I mean, I don't think, without getting into kind of gossipy terms, I don't think it's not a marriage as yet.
Okay.
It's not.
The point is, he's not doing bad in life anyway.
No, so I mean, behind every man that's going through tough times, hopefully there's a good woman to push him along.
Exactly. Right, Temps. You wouldn't let Aaron Ramsdale or a cricketer go on TV if you were in the media chair in that side. One person we haven't mentioned, well, 2 actually. I want to just give a quick shout out for 3. Morato and Bolly, who I thought did really well when they came off the bench. But Nuno as well. We can't go through the whole show without saying what a job Nuno's done. So give us a few thoughts on that, Temps, before we depart.
I had Morato on my list of people to mention because unless we qualify for Europe, Murillo will leave at the end of the season. And I think we have a ready-made replacement in Morato, who was very tidy on the ball. He was involved in the regaining of possession for the goal. and just looks a very assured player. He's got the physical stature as well, comfortable on the ball. I think there's a real player there who will form a proper opinion of when we see him for more and more minutes. But what can you say about Nuno? He's taken us from where we were to where we are. I think as fans, we get attached to any current manager, but we don't mention Steve Cooper's name anymore because Nuno has taken us on to another plane. He had a pretty immediate impact with those early results around Christmas time last year, the Newcastle one being the standout, I suppose. And since then, I think you can see the method, the belief he's instilled and the tweaks he's made to game plans to get us the results that we've got. Extremely impressed. He isn't a massive voice in the media. He's very coy when he's asked pre-match about injuries or selections or whatever else. But I think his passion comes out after a win. And you can see there is a certain popularity amongst the players and a belief that he's doing what he's doing. I've spoken to a couple of people in and around the club. I'm told that he surrounds himself with an amazing set of coaches and medics and sports scientists and the like. And I suppose that's also the mark of someone who has a team of people around him who are truly elite and giving Forest an edge in a number of performance measures, which are showing fruit with the points that they're gaining. So I'm completely behind Nuno, delighted that he's got that team of people behind the team at Forest. But more importantly, I just think all of us see in his team selections, in his tactical setups, that he knows football. He knows how to manage an improving team in the Premier League. And he's created a situation now where even if I'm not fully sold yet, we can dream of that top 4, top 6 finish. Total credit to what he's done to take our football club on to another level.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a good point to end on, Prutz. We know exactly what this team is. You know what every player's role is. You know what the setup is. You watch not half the teams in the Premier League. You watch teams that are certainly in the bottom of the Premier League, and you don't know what the game plan is. You know exactly what this Forest team's about and how we've recruited this Forest team to play to a set way, and that stands us in good stead. Touch wood, hopefully for years to come, if we stay smart in the market.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because it's almost kind of, there's a great comment been made about what the job that he did at Wolves, which sometimes football memories can be quite short, can't they? You think of, yes, the team that was provided to him had a very high standard of players in, but then the jump that they made and the consolidation that they made in the top 10 and above was phenomenal. So that's where Forest need to aim, obviously without the kind of drop off of what we've seen with Wolves and how they want to be as established, at least in the top 10 of the Premier League as possible. So tactically and from a character point of view, he almost kind of realised what he was coming into off the back of Coops, didn't he? He understood the emotions of it. He was very respectful, very mature about it, really. Every manager's got to pick up something from another, pick up the pieces left behind by another manager. So what he did with that first and foremost was, as Tim said, go to the fundamentals. You've got to shore things up at the back and you've got to attempt to be creative going forward. And then what comes with that is that malleability of the team and bringing in the players that he wants. And the other side about it is, which, without sounding too twee, has stood him in really good stead, is he's very categorical about what he'll tell you pre and post match. If he doesn't want to answer, and you'll know this, Matt, if he doesn't want to answer something, he won't tell you to do one or storm off. He'll kind of say it in a way with both that face that can relax into the most wonderfully warm smile, but can also look like he could rip your head off in about 2 seconds as well, given the physical capability of the man. So he's managed to do that, and he's also managed to make it about the fans and the players, not him. And he's done it in such a mild-mannered but very, very comprehensive way and very kind of adaptable way that the man knows what he's doing. The man absolutely knows what he's doing, and we discussed it when he came in about what he might bring and what you might think of him if you're a Spurs fan or whatever. Doesn't matter. It's about what you think of him in charge of your football club and the way he's done it, and the kind of humour of the man and the good humour of the man and the emotional intelligence of the fellas there for all to see. So wonderful for him. I think he's brought a real likability back to the team as well, because there was I'm not saying for 1 second there were bad eggs left, right, and centre, but given that sheer volume of recruitment, there was a couple that you go, not sure about you, not sure about you, and he's managed to kind of, without fuss, move those away, get them away, and make it a more appealing side. And he's the glue that holds it all together. And long, hopefully, may it continue.
We have hit the full hour mark, and these chaps have got to go very shortly. So, Michael Temple, any final thoughts, any final words from you?
Just very briefly, I was lucky enough to be in one of the lounges after the game on Saturday, and Ryan Yates came in with Jason Lee, and he was asked, right, Yatesy, we're flying now. What's the target for these next 2 games? What will be acceptable through the Christmas period? Brentford away, Spurs at home. And he just said 6 points. The belief is they can go and have a go at these 2 teams. And those games are followed up by Everton and Wolves, aren't they? So there's every chance that we can have a period now before the break for the Luton game in the FA Cup where we make real hay. Prutton articulated earlier, you don't know which Spurs side is going to turn up. They can be absolutely anything. That can be a 1-0 or a 5-4 in either direction. So yeah, just pointing to that belief, hoping we have a positive Christmas period and finish this year on an absolute high, because right at this moment in time, as Forest fans, we're feeling on top of the world.
Great little video of Ryan Yates dancing in the dressing room as well. I know, doing the rounds. Perhaps any final thoughts from you?
No, thanks again for having me on. Hopefully everyone has a good and happy and healthy Christmas, and there's plenty to look forward to. But I think it's been inherently positive, as well it should be. And at times we've discussed this, and at times Forest have been covered, and it's been all about off-field stuff, and it's been about all the things that suck the life out of football, barring VAR. But what I think they're seeing, what this generation of Forest fans are seeing, hopefully, there's a real kind of devouring of it all, because without dialing down what the hope should be, I mean, there's that old adage of, I wish I know the good old days were happening when the good old days were happening. These are the good old days, aren't they? And could potentially be better. And just genuinely across the board, I sincerely hope that everyone is enjoying it to the degree of a Michael Tempson Raglan Road at 1 a.m. on a Saturday night. That's your benchmark. If you're not doing that, then you then get out of here.
Andy Reid and Paul McGregor are in there as well. I was surprised you didn't pop up. You're on the bar with 3 Guinness.
Of course, were those 2 really in there?
Well, Paul McGregor had a gig at the NAV, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which hilariously he did in half a Forest tracksuit and a pair of Adidas Copas, and smashed it by all accounts. But yeah, and Andy Reid was in there looking very lean, and Paul McGregor was in there looking every inch the rock star.
Legends.
Andy Reid got on stage, didn't he? Plays a bit of guitar. I think he got on stage with
he
the
plays
band.
a lot of guitar.
Does he?
Yes, I mean, to the point where it was. He takes everywhere, doesn't he? There's a story about Giovanni Trapattoni trying to get the Irish team to bed, and Reedy on his guitar going, "Leave it, Trap. We're having a sing-song." Trap. Leave it, Trap. We're singing. Like, okay, really, yeah. And Paul McGregor, what I do is, I've got a mate who's boring, divergent, the spitting image of him. He was not interested in football at all. So when I was kicking around there in the late 90s and he was coming to games, he got so many people saying hello to it. People keep saying hello to him. It's like, yeah, you're the spitting image of Paul McGregor. Absolutely ridiculous. And he was a lovely fella to us, Paul, because he was as YTs. He used to come in some ridiculous garb. I think it was called fashion, but he was always lovely with us. Really, really lovely. And and I met him latterly to do a podcast, and he was as funny as you would think he would be.
He was on last week. It was really interesting. One of the comments I noticed on YouTube was that he and you apparently sound very similar, same cadence in your voice and everything.
Do we? So I'm glad I was so nice about him. Because if I said Paul McGregor's right boring sod, and
talks like an idiot. Yeah, the cadence of his voice is so annoying. Yeah,
talks like an idiot. Yes, it was. We were on with Matt Ford on that one back in the day, and good to see Fordy back up, kind of cracking on doing his bits and bobs. He's another lovely dude.
Yeah, massively. Right, these guys have got to go, so I'll end it there. If you've enjoyed this, do hit like, hit subscribe, become a channel member, sign up for Patreon, 5-star iTunes reviews, and Spotify would be lovely. Back tomorrow with Rick Parfitt Jr. to talk about his gig at the NAV, and then Touchwood on Wednesday with Guy Mowbray, hoping he'll confirm that, and then we'll turn our attention to Brentford. Michael Temple, thank you very much.
Cheers, Matt. Get well soon, mate. Go and bathe that eye in warm water and cotton wool or whatever's required. And I'll see you soon.
I've got the cream and the antibiotics. Look at him taking the piss. I was almost going to boot you from the studio. But
should become an official.
Yeah. More
David
than qualified.
Prutton. Yeah, exactly. David Prutton, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes, Merry Christmas, everyone. Appreciate your support. I mean, if we could get to 10,000 subscribers by Christmas, I don't think it's going to happen. But if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed and you want to help me get to 10,000, that'd be lovely. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a good day. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.